Thanks very much indeed for the opportunity to speak with you this morning. I've already learned a great deal. You mentioned the AIF badge, and those of you who are responsible for maintaining your CPD, I think that you could already claim quite a significant amount of new learning as a consequence of attending here this morning. I know that I'm going to take the construction radar risk profiling tool into my network through our national committee and also feed back our own thoughts on it. I'm always looking for the missing piece of the jigsaw. I think that your piece on baby boomers and generational influence, I got a taxi here yesterday, and when I got into taxi they were playing rap music, and about 4 or 5 minutes in he turned it into 80s soft rock. So he obviously recognised my chronological giftedness, you know. Also, when you were talking about during the break about students, I remember when I was a student, and if my children were here, they would go, here she goes again. But interlibrary loan was something that we used. If you wanted to read something like the Health and Safety at Work Act, you would fill in a piece of paper, give it to the librarian, they would write to you, and you would get a letter at your halls of residence that said you could borrow the book, but you had to pick it up at a certain time and take it back at a certain time. There were no photocopying facilities, so think how much things have changed. I mean, the gentleman next to me offered me the paper copy of the programme because he has the app. You know, wow, things are certainly different. And then Brian, you know, the soft skills that are involved in doing what people that are involved in our shared profession, irrespective of from which perspective you're looking at it. I read a paper recently that we should rename soft skills power skills, because they're very powerful skills that everybody needs to help get things right. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an oversight of a bit of stuff that ROSPA does, a bit of background to how we form our policy positions, and certainly an insight into how we've worked with the Ladder Association in particular over the last couple of years to get people to consider the Get a Grip Ladder campaign, and if people are being safe in the workplace, why are they having accidents out with work related to the same types of activities? Because using a ladder correctly or using access equipment correctly is definitely a transferable skill if you use the same skill set when you take that particular piece of work home with you. So that's what I'm going to endeavour to do this morning for you. Are we already in the afternoon? There you go, this afternoon. So I thought it was really interesting this. I was looking at this title here, Access for Life, and I mean it's all about, for me, is about creating the right type of conditions for people to thrive, irrespective of where they operate. ROSPA is an organisation that's 103 years old, and despite my current appearance, I've only really been there for about 30, and we very much consider our work as being a policy-driven excellence model. So we consider through our national committee, that'll give you a little bit of an insight into thinking about what people bring to work with them, because I'm a whole person. I'm sitting here, and those of you heard me at the Ladder Association earlier on this year, I've got an 83-year-old dad, I've got a 26-year-old and a 25-year-old, so I'm here as a sandwich. You know, I'm right in the middle of that, and no matter what happens in my life today, you have my attention for this period of time, yet there's all sorts of things going on, which I think, Brian, your presentation really brought to the fore. We also very much look at the workplace as being a conduit for wider public health messages. So again, the Safe at Work, Safe Home message is very much that. And we recognise that each of us is a catalogue, too much time in the exhibition, a catalyst for change. Our work is based on, right, okay, clicker's decided not to work, there we go, that's all right. A whole person, whole life approach to prevention. Essentially this is our elevator pitch, and I make no apologies for taking the glasses off because I don't know when I need them. I mean, essentially, our elevator pitch is that we underpin our work with the power of prevention. It's all about prevention in our world. We're very clear that accidents and cases of occupational ill health do not need to happen. They are They lead in preventable cause of death, serious injury and long-term disability, which devastate individuals, families, communities and work families. And they place this huge burden on our society in terms of our health and social care systems. We very much recognise that good work is good for you. But again, in your example, good work, Brian, good work isn't always good for everybody every day. So it's all about constantly remaining tuned in through these power skills to make sure that you understand what's going on in your workplace. We very much recognise that safe and healthy work underpins success and that freedom from harm is an important goal for society. I think the fourth bullet point is the one that resonates in terms of what I've already heard today, is that we all have a responsibility. There's very much an ownership piece for each and every one of us in our work and our home lives to ensure that we adopt a balanced approach to health, safety and risk. Now, sometimes there's a challenge in getting people to understand that are not part of the health and safety world to understand, like the public health agenda, to get people to really think about what it's like to be in poor or bad work. Worklessness is a determinant of poor health. Bad work, and I know that when I was at the school you weren't allowed to use the word bad because it wasn't I should translate for you, shouldn't I? It wasn't descriptive enough. But bad work is where people are being exposed to harm in the workplace environment. If I'd just let you have a look at this wee slide in front of you, and it's interesting that there's actually a consultation being carried out just now by the Office of National Statistics on human capital indicators. And it's about putting people, people with skills, knowledge and experience. Those are the words you'll understand. Human capital sometimes is a bit difficult to get your head around, but it's about the skills, knowledge and experience of an individual or population, our value to society. So if you think about the people who work with you, and about keeping their good work, keeping their functional capacity high, means you can work with them for longer. They can be part of your team for longer. So what we have here is on the vertical axis, that bit's still working, that's cool. So that's your functional capacity. And interestingly, the ONS are looking at exactly this thing. So they're talking about life course. So life course is across your life, from when you're born to when you depart. So what we have here is functional capacity, which is how you work, how well this works. There's a lot of conversation about sustainability. We had a recycling bin collected yesterday, so we're good at recycling. We pick everything out. There's bottle recycling. There's, it's all about sustainability. I have to say I'd never thought about this having to be sustainable. I think about it a lot now, but I wish I'd thought earlier about the impact of certain things that you do, certain hobbies that you have, about making sure that you're sustainable over the life course so you can have this fulfilled and fulfilling life. So on the top here we've got functional capacity, and along the bottom here we've got the word age. I prefer chronologically gifted, So the further along here you go, the more gifted you are. Sounds much better, doesn't it? So essentially what we're looking at here is this is perhaps where people are coming in to the workplace. So they've got their early life growth and development, and then we start coming into the workplace. And this is where, if you have poor work, it can certainly influence your well-being and your functional capacity. There is a place for rehabilitation and bringing people back into the workplace, but the big thing for us as employers, and I was speaking to Jason last night about employment profiles and how we cannot grow people quick enough. We are in an ageing, declining population. What's coming down the track is being in work for longer for various reasons. So we've got to help create the conditions that make sure people function at higher capacity over a longer period of time. I was thinking about this as being your value to the access industry, because I know, as I say, Jason, and I hope I'm no oversharing here, but I know you've done something on this sector and what the profile is going to look like moving forward, and the fact that we need to encourage more people to come in and recognise the value of them as being part of our sort of work-related community, and how we then meet their needs going forward. In our mind, in ROSPA's mind, accidents are really wasteful. They get in the way of having a fulfilled and fulfilling life. And I always, when I get daily updates, and they include the HSC's updates, and it's sometimes a real challenge, which is when you mention the names, because I think that's the most powerful way of getting the message across, because I'll read something that says there was no risk assessment, there was no reason for this to have happened. And there's a quote sometimes that I use, and I'll use it just now, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. So we seem to be stuck in this loop with falls from height, and there's all these different ways that we're looking at it. And I'm hopeful that in the next short period of time, in terms of years, we can really make the breakthrough and start tackling, bringing the numbers back down. Because our focus is very much on the people behind the statistics. Just one thing I also thought I'd share with you, that we've, at ROSPA, we've been speaking with Carers UK, because they published a piece of research that said that there's 600 people a day stop working in the UK to look after people who need looked after. Now, you care whether you care for 1 minute or it's full time, you know, but that's what's happening. 600 people are dropping out of work every day to look after people. So I've asked them what percentage of that is as a consequence of accidents, because we believe that accidents don't need to happen. And I think what we've already heard this morning is that falls from height are things that we probably can manage. The numbers, we can bring the numbers down over time if we look at it from a number of different perspectives. So the Get a Grip piece of work certainly did that. So I'm just going to give you a bit of an insight into it at the moment. So for me, the whole, I must remember that's not working. For me, the whole sort of working at height, and ROSPA were one of the respondents to the APPG consultation, is almost like sort of peeling an onion. Or, you know, looking at sort of thread and, you know, untangling pieces of threads and what runs through across the working from height community. And we've seen 4 presentations already today that have looked at it all from a slightly different perspective. And if we can look at it holistically, hopefully we can start to really understand what the challenges remain, for us. So the Get a Grip ladder campaign essentially developed from a conversation that I had with Jason maybe 2 years ago, where the Ladder Association wanted to look at ladders in the workplace, but they also recognised that lots of people are absent from work as a consequence of these accidents that happen out with the workplace. And ladder accidents certainly fall into that category. So Jason helped us at ROSPA develop our Safe and Active at All Ages, which is a national accident prevention strategy. It's based on data in England, but the recommendations from it could be embedded anywhere. And there's going to be an ask from me before you have your lunch. There's a couple of items from this that fall into my remit to deliver, so I'm always looking for help. So I'm going to ask for some assistance there. So we sort of had to think about the challenges of safe at work, safe at home. And what we did was we then, and when I say we, I'm supported by lots of people to get it right, so which is a wonderful thing. I'm supported by, this is our national committee. You'll get the slides. And I kind of, you're not meant to be able to read any of that, you know. It's meant to show you how many partners there are. They're part of the same machine, and our machine is about policy decisions, delivering excellence in an occupational health and safety context. So we aim to catalyse working together to achieve sustainable change. I mean, round the perimeter there, we have people like HSE, Alison Codling of HSE attends. We have the British Occupational Hygiene Society. We have Unite the Union. It's currently chaired by Unite the Union. So there's all these players. There's 20 plus players linked to that community that help us form our policy positions. We work with this stakeholder group to identify and explore solutions to emerging issues. So one of the big challenges that we're looking at just now is fatigue. That's one of the challenges. Another thing that we have historically looked at and are continuing to move forward is the influence of the ageing population and ensuring that you have sustainable working lives for people. Another piece we're doing is advice about advice. And I'm just thinking that perhaps it's about where would you go for the right advice on. You know, if you needed an occupational hygienist or a practitioner, an ergonomist, or any of those physiotherapists, that type of network. But I'm actually thinking we should find a way to build in this forum, the AIF, because people need to be signposted to the right advice when they're looking for dealing with the technical aspects of working height and how to control the risks. And then the third element of what we do is we monitor performance and research towards the need for better regulation and sort of learned opinion to help us shape our way forward. Within this group here, I've also got, because I really like my job, you know, we have got a connection to our award winners network. So I spend most of my time working with award ambassadors that are across the world. We've got 27, the aim is for 50. So that's our high level conduit for what's discussed here to get out to the wider world, because people do look at the UK and think, they're doing really well. They're doing great. How do they do it? So that's how we use that network. Our award winners network influence the lives of 7 million people. So what we discuss today will be put out through that ambassador network and help us to get maybe the Get a Grip Ladder campaign into other geographies. We've spoken a lot this morning about sort of leading and lagging indicators. So I kind of thought we would have spoken a lot about leading and lagging indicators. So I thought that I would just think about it in terms of the tortoise and the hare. If you think when you were wee, you know, the story of the tortoise and the hare, you know, where they're going to have a race with each other. And the hare sets off fast and the tortoise is just doing its thing. And the hare thinks, I'm far enough ahead here to have a sleep. And the tortoise just gets past. And the hare wakes up, but when the hare wakes up, there's not enough time for it to get to the finishing line first. So I think there's a lot about that in leading and lagging indicators. You know, the lagging indicators, very much for me, just down at the bottom here is, that's Icarus and Daedalus. You know, the Daedalus constructed the maze for the Minotaur. And on this island, so they constructed the maze for the Minotaur to contain the Minotaur, but then Daedalus fell out. The king that owned the land that the Minotaur was on, they fell out. So Icarus and Daedalus were captured. They were held captive in the maze, and the only way they could get out was to make some wings and fly out. The Daedalus, the dad, explained it all. He did all the piece of work. He constructed the wings. This is where I think maybe the baby boomer thing comes in, the Generation Zers, because he said to his son, he said, look, if you fly too high, the wax that's holding these wings together is going to fail, and you're going to fall into the sea and drown. And he said, if you fly too low, you're going to get hit by the sea spray. It's going to saturate the wings and it's going to drag you down. So he told his son all this, but Icarus was just so elated at being able to leave the maze that he took off far too fast, got too close to the sun, and then became a lagging indicator. So I certainly think there is a whole piece there about intergenerational working. And then the last one up there, I'm never very sure. We've been talking about different ways of looking at things today. So perspective. I normally have a little black and white cow. Those of you that have seen Father Ted, you know, is this small or is it just very far away? So thanks very much, by the way, for lending me this. So I think there are lots of different ways of looking at things, and I know that with the Get a Grip Ladder campaign, whilst we've sort of followed the regulatory craft principles of looking at the data, deciding what we're going to do, and then sticking at it long enough to make a difference, we also recognise that face-to-face communication works really, really well, but we had to start embracing new ways of getting information out there. So we've had very successful Twitter campaigns, for example. How many people in here use Twitter? Oh, that's pretty good. Excellent. Well, we need to make sure that you're all following Jason so you can keep up to date with it, because I recently used it at an event in Canada. A colleague of mine, Graham Parker, who is also a ROSPA Awards ambassador, ran a session on sharing success. How do you do it in your organisation? So it was really just a big cross-fertilisation in the through the Canadian Society of Safety and Engineering Network. And it was brilliant, it was great fun. And but we used the hashtag sharing success. And somebody did a Twitter analytic, and I think from memory, it had been viewed 390,000 times in under 30 hours. Interlibrary loan to that, how amazing, you know. So we very much looked at all these facets of how to, you know, different perspectives of looking at the sort of Get a Grip Ladder campaign, and I thought, oh, dear me, man, that's just going to annoy me now. There we go. So we have been looking at working it out from a number of different perspectives. We've already heard about the APPG from Stefan, and I know there's going to be more to be heard about it this afternoon. I've mentioned the Get a Grip Ladder campaign information to you, and that's what I'm going to give you some more insights into. However, one of the things that we felt was really important, and is why Ladder Association wanted to work with ROSPA, was very much about the ripple effect. The impact that an accident that happens to one individual doesn't really just happen to one individual. As I mentioned earlier, it happens to their families, it happens to their work families, it happens to the wider community. So that's why we work together with the Ladder Association to get these safe at work, safe at home messages out there. So the Get a Grip campaign, essentially, it was launched, and there's lots of information about it through in the exhibition area. It gives you a précis of what I'm going to be telling you about over the next few minutes, and it gives you the sort of key tips on ladder use. And I hear tell this is called a QR code. Some of you may know what that is. I've never used one yet. However, if you want to watch the video that we're going to see at the end of this presentation, you can use the QR code to see it. So literally the campaign is thought of every facet of how to get access to as many people as possible, so we can engage from baby boomers right the way through to Generation Zers. So it was launched last year in August. So phase one of Get a Grip, primarily on the Twitter sphere, and then we had a festive campaign that was led by Jason, that was very much about, well, if you're going to use a ladder to put your Christmas decorations up, put your Christmas tree up, just tidy up the garden before Santa Claus arrives, you should do it safely here as well. So there was a 12 Days of Christmas campaign that I'm hopeful we might just manage to do something with again this year. And we then had this linked into the training aspect of it, the step too far between January and March. And in that time, over 8,000 packs were downloaded from the website, so and used efficiently, which is tremendous. We also had over and above, the campaign was so successful that it's quite difficult to get material into international journals. You know, it's a bit of a challenge to get information in international journals. So we pitched, ROSPA pitched with the American Society of Safety Professionals journal, which is called PSJ, Professional Safety. And in September of this year, this whole piece of work was featured in their magazine, and very much about the human capital aspect of it. And central to the piece, really, like the Hare and the Tortoise and Icarus, is storytelling. The storytelling that's linked to this particular piece of work is certainly what has brought it to life. It is certainly what has provided a different perspective on the impact of the ripple effect. I know that when Jason and I were working together, we wanted more people to tell their stories, and we have Dylan, we've got Paul, we've got Jason, who do it incredibly well. But we just want ordinary, you know, just like, you know, I was in the garden, I did this went wrong. But people didn't want to come forward. It's like, oh, I know I shouldn't have done it. You know, it just makes me look foolish. You know, I should never have done that. So we thought, how are we going to fix this? And we fixed it by working with Jason's daughter, Abby. So I'm not going to say any more about it at the moment. I think it's very much the questions that we had were, who will people listen to? And I think that you'll certainly see why people listen to Abby, and the question about who will tell their story. And I have to say that when we approached Abby, there was no hesitation. And what I'd like to do now is I'd like you to see Abby Taylor's short video. I think I've met her a few times. I think she's totally inspirational. And I'm going to endeavour now to make the technology work, which is always a thing that I'm never quite sure about.
My dad is my best friend. Like, I know other people say that, but he is my best friend. He's the first person I ring in the morning, say goodnight to. If I have any problems, I go to him. I know he's always going to be there, like, as he always has done, really. I've never known actually anyone as strong and as brave as he is, really. When I was 3 years old, my dad had a fall from height, fell off a ladder at work, doing something he shouldn't have been doing. And he's spent the rest of his life since in a wheelchair. He didn't fall very high, he only fell 10 feet. So to a lot of people, they think, oh, they don't actually think that's, in relative terms, that's not a very big height to fall, but it had dramatic impact on Dad, and here we are today.
January 3rd, 1993, I was 24 years old. I was married. I had 2 children. At the time, I was working as a roofing labourer on a construction site. I wasn't a roofer by trade, and I was asked to go up a ladder that was untied. A lack of confidence about speaking up, I'm not sure, but I went up the ladder, and actually when I came down the ladder, still unfooted, I slipped and I fell.
Anybody that uses ladders or work from height, they need to just get a grip with ladder safety. They need to do it for themselves firstly, but it's for us at home. Like, if you don't have the strength or bravery or whatever it is just to say to your supervisor or your colleague, I'm not happy with this, I'm not doing it, then you're willing to risk your health, your well-being, your life even. But actually it's your friends and family at home that have to pick up the pieces. We're the ones that have to live with it and help you. So, I mean, I'm nearly 29 and I'm still emotionally affected by something that happened 26 years ago.
So it's powerful stuff, and thanks again, because you know how grateful we are for you sharing. And Abby came up to Scotland and launched the Get a Grip campaign at our conference, our ROSPA conference in May, and it was flat cam after everyone heard that. So it's there to be used. If there's people who need to hear that message and you need to get the message out there, just to spend those few minutes, I think is hugely valuable. I'd like to close now, and I always say that because the chair might be looking at me, I'm not sure. Am I bang on time? I want to stop you, but yeah, am I? Yeah. So I'm just going to finish up by asking for help. You know, our National Accident Prevention Strategy has got 2 elements, and I've got a little bit. You'll see the hazard tape, and this here reminds me of what I've got to deliver over the next year, okay? So these 2 actions are in front of you on the screen. They encourage the collection of data on absence from work that results from accidents that happen away from work. So if you're recording or thinking about recording accidents or absence as a consequence of things that happen out with the workplace, because that might be, I think it potentially could be the next step change in understanding absence statistics. So either to the workers themselves who've decided to use a ladder and fallen off it and have a broken wrist or broken ribs or whatever it is, or it's happened to a member of their family and they're not at work because they're caring for somebody. So if you're doing that or you're interested in having a conversation about that, I'm really keen to have a word with you. And the second one, I can tell you, we're starting working towards this. Develop a network of higher performing organisations that can lead the way on these carryover programmes. So if you're getting it right in the workplace, you actually also get it right in the domestic environment, particularly on falls prevention. Now, I mentioned our award winners. I've got 2,000 award winners in 34 countries. 250 of them this year will apply for sector awards. And the sector awards questions actually are asking about how they manage work at height. So I've asked that specifically. Not as part of a general sort of this is how we do our health and safety. There's 2 questions we're asking. They've got the option of telling us what they're doing about fatigue, which is a real challenge, and also working from height. So this time next year, hopefully we'll have 250 case studies from all over the world that says this is what we're doing, and we can maybe bring some of the people to tell you what's happening. So that's kind of me. Help us shape our thinking. Really keen to have a chat with you over lunch. He's standing up now, so I really do have to stop. And thanks very much indeed. Thank you.